Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Monday Motivational Call, or as I guess really what it really is the pre-show to the Business Coaching Secrets podcast, exclusive for LPW advisors and coaches, hosted by myself, aka Road Dog, and of course the man himself, Karl Bryan. How are you, sir?
Yo, Road Dog, my man. What's happening, buddy?
Just living the dream, my friend. Getting ready for a hot week.
I know, I was going to say, you must have had that shirt off, bud, with all those new muscles you got, bud. You must have been cruising down the beach and doing push-ups. Is that what happened?
That's what I do. I actually just do push-ups right in front of your house, and it's kind of how I roll. But, I don't know. Like, your wife seems impressed.
I'm laughing so much because I believe him. That's probably exactly what happened.
If you're wondering where Tammy has been, that's why she's been sitting at the window.
Yeah, exactly. It's Road Dog again. Look, he's doing, oh my God, he's doing pull-ups. What the hell? What's going on? Get away from the kids at the playground, you weirdo Road Dog, with those muscles. All right, cool, man. Let's open up a couple of lines here. That last comment could have been taken poorly. Joking around here, folks. All right, and actually on that note, just so you guys know, we say this almost every single time, but in case there's somebody listening and wondering what the hell's going on, this call, the goal is not to be professional, and Road Dog's not sitting over in his tuxedo. We are having a little bit of fun. This is Business Coaching Secrets. This is the podcast. We want to entertain and we want to educate, so we have a little bit of fun with it. So just an FYI. You hear Road Dog poking fun at me constantly. That's what's happening. Right, Road Dog?
Let's do this. Let's open up a couple of folks and see what's if they're doing push-ups right now as well. Let's see what's going on.
Okay. Let's open up Julia. We're coming for you. Say hello to us. Julia, you're self-muted. Julia, we want to say hi. Come on, don't be shy. There she is. Yo, what's happening?
What's happening? Oh, just coming off a really busy weekend, getting ready for some holidays, go see our daughter in August here, so it's been
cool.
Busy.
Beautiful. Whereabouts are you, and where's your daughter? So how far are you traveling?
I'm in Calgary. She's in Bonnyville.
Oh, Bonnyville.
Yeah.
My neighbor, literally, my neighbor, funny story. So Bonnyville, I played, when I was playing hockey, I played in the provincial tournament in Bonnyville, and there was this guy about 6'5". I'll never forget. Pretty sure he's number 55. But he hit me so hard, I never thought I was ever going to wake up again.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so my neighbor is actually from Bonnyville, and I'm like, I played against this guy, man. I tried to remember the year. It was 86 or something like that. It was a young guy getting pulverized. Anyway, so Bonnyville, so I know it well, and I grew up in Cochrane, so there you go. So
I know that. You told me that when we had our conversation.
That's right.
By the way, how's your mama
Bonnyville
doing?
So hey. So I
how's
know
your mama doing, Karl?
What's that, sorry?
How's your mama doing?
My mother-in-law?
No, your mama, Sherry.
Yes. Oh my God, this is right. Oh, she's doing great. In fact, you know what? Dino, her son, to anybody listening, Mama is my mama, Sherry. She pretty much raised me.
Yes.
Her son is Dino, and her other son is Russ, who is my best friend, and his older brother is like my older brother, and he literally texted me about 30 minutes ago, and he's in Kelowna. So there you go. How crazy is that?
Actually, Sherry's been a good friend of mine for about 25 years.
Oh my God! Oh, she is. She was just here.
I know. That's what she said. She was there when you were doing the webinar on July 10th.
And Julie, damn, Road Dog, you got to move out of the way here. Julie's got to run the show, man. She's got, everything going on. Cool. Anyways, okay, cool. Well, look, honored to have you here.
Thank you.
Say hello to Mama when you speak to her next. I'll probably be speaking to her before you, though. Because again,
probably.
Mama lover. Anyways, cool. Okay, Julia, appreciate you, bud. Going to put you back on mute and enjoy your time in Bonnyville when you get there.
Thank you.
Okay, going to put her back on mute. Well, there you go, eh? Okay, let's do one more here. We're going to open up Mike Kiter. Mike, we're coming for you. There he is. Mike, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Fabulous. What's happening, man? You got 100 or so coaches listening.
I got a lot of stuff going on. I got a call later on today with Adrian on some other strategy stuff I'm working on, so I'm excited about that call as well.
You beauty. So what do you got cooking this week? So what's a busy week look like? Give us a rundown.
Well, I've been coaching for a number of years, but I'm new with you guys, and so I just love the infrastructure. I mean, I left another company to go out on my own, and so when I ran across you guys and saw the infrastructure, this is where I really got excited because it's going to save me a tremendous amount of hours to have to build all this, and it's already in place, so now I can just keep running.
That's it, man. Beautiful. High five, man. That's what we want you to say, Mike. Everybody listening? What Mike said. There you go. Perfect.
You didn't have to pay me to say that.
Yeah, I know, exactly, man. It's like a testimonial on steroids. Okay, awesome, man. Look, I'm going to put you back on mute here, buddy. Appreciate you being here. And Road Dog, tell you what, man, let's get this show on the road. You got some questions ready, man?
You bet. Okay, everybody, let's get this queued up here for the podcast, so bear with me for just a second. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Your boy Road Dog here with the man himself, King Karl. How are you, sir?
Yo. Doing good, Road Dog. What's happening, man? You and your big muscles? Doing good today, bud?
Just doing well.
There you go. I just stopped you in your tracks, big shoots. Well, Karl.
What am I going to reply with? You and your little muscles? Like, where am I going with this? Like,
there was a time, man. You'd be impressed. There was a time. There you go.
Oh my God!
All right, what's happening?
All right, I'm going to dive right in this week because I've got a pile of questions here, and all right, we're just going to dive right in. So the first question I got here was from a lady. She says, "I'm an accomplished sales and marketing gal," and yes, she called herself a gal. Accomplished sales and marketing, you've inspired me. Now, this is shocking, the fact that you're out there inspiring people. So this is progress, Karl. So there you are. You've inspired me to learn of all things small business finance to raise my game for my clients. Where would you encourage me to start?
Okay. Well, there you go, Road Dog. Inspired somebody. I told you, man, this is working. Okay, so first of all, high five. She called herself a gal, first of all, which I like that. There you go. I grew up in a small little town with a bunch of cowboys, so they'd all be proud of you calling yourself a gal. But first of all, it's easier than you think. So sales and marketing, I've well and truly been down that track. I guess if you're asking me, you've heard the story. I'm a sales and marketing guy through and through, and just for my own personal mastery, I decided that this is something I had to undertake. So it's easier than you think. They confuse the absolute hell out of you. And it's by design, make no mistake about it. Like an example, like you've got the income statement. It's also called a profit and loss, and then it's called a P&L. It could be called, what else? I don't know, statement of income, statement of earnings. Profit is also earnings. Like, debits, credits, which by the way could just be plus and minus, make life a whole lot easier. So just understand that they're trying to confuse you. So if you go at it with that angle, I think, again, you'll kind of brace yourself and be ready for it. The three documents you need to know is a balance sheet, income statement, and a cash flow statement. Those are really the only three, unless you're going to go on and, really get into this. But these are the three, higher level that you need to understand. What else? Look, there's three words that you need to understand, I think, or I would encourage, let's put it that way, from my own journey. I don't think you're going to hear this elsewhere. But this is stuff that I've kind of, piecing this all together and really trying to learn it. Remember, I don't learn it for myself. I'm learning it to teach it. So I feel like I'm trying to, go multiple layers deeper. But like comparables as well. Comparables, trends, relationships. Again, you heard me talking about it. You hear those words before. I would get intimately familiar with them because if you want to understand finance and accounting at a level that you're going to be able to help your clients with, right? So what do those three words mean to me? So comparables. When your accountant provides your financial statements and they just provide, this year, so we're in 2020 right now, they provide 2020 financial statements. It's crazy because what they have to do is provide comparables. They got to provide last year and potentially the year before that, like 2019, 2018. Why? When you stand on a scale, you might stand on it, you're 200 pounds. If you were 180, a number of months ago, this is horrific. But if you were 240 a few months ago, this is great. You need to have comparables. When I'm looking at my financial statements and it says $1 million of gross revenues, is that good or is that bad? Well, the answer would be in the comparables, right? So again, you don't want to look at financials as a standalone. You also want to see trends, okay? So picture it left, if you, say you've got 2000 and 18, 19, and 2020, when you go left to right, you're going to see trends. What do I mean by that? If revenues were 900 and now they're 1 million and now they're down to 800,000, you see the way, how's your trend going? It's going up and now it's coming crashing back down. There has to be some questions like, why is it trending? And by the way, if it's 800, 900, now 1 million, this is a good thing. Like you're trending in the right direction, right? And then of course the opposite, it goes 1,900,000, 800,000. Now we got some serious problems. We need to look at that. When you don't have these comparables side by side, you wonder why businesses fail and how it happens when a successful business goes sideways. Well, they're not looking at these comparables, right? Like they don't have this scoreboard out in front of them where they can see these types of things happening and grab control of it, before everything goes sideways. And the expenses, of course, don't go anywhere. Could be a little bit, so this is how they go sideways. But anyway, so trends and then relationships. I want you to, trends go left to right, and then relationships, the way I teach them, the way I understand them, the way that I've taught myself is going up and down, right? So like, the relationship between revenues and expenses would be a real obvious one. If revenues are, if revenues are X and then expenses are significantly too high for that X target, like in other words, you're not able to manage your 20 to 30% margins, the relationship between revenues and expenses is not a good one. Either you're spending too much money and you haven't cut out things that could be cut out, or you're spending money on things like marketing that isn't paying off, and therefore there's not that correlation, right? So anyway, so those three, again, got to go a little bit deeper than that, but not time to do it here. But those three words, comparables, trends, and relationships. Okay, advice around, so here's another thing. In fact, I believe that this is amongst the greatest wealth hacks ever. And again, as I've learned it more and more over the last number of years, I believe that to be absolute fact. And I think you guys will experience the same if you undertake it. And that's it. Understanding, like learning to think in percentages versus whole numbers is hugely powerful. Okay. And what do I mean? When you go from, say your margins are 30%, and then you increase them to 33%, the naked eye looks at that and goes, that's a 3% increase. Where in actual fact, that's a 10% increase, right? You got 20% margins and you increase them to 30%. On the naked eye, you look at that, you go 20 to 30, that's a 10% increase. Where in actual fact, that's a 50% increase, right? Because 10 would be 20 to 22, 20 would be 20 to 24, 20 to 26 would be 30, et cetera. So you get a 50% increase when you go from 20 to 30. Like common sizing is another example. Like the second most powerful thing you can do in an income statement is what's called common sizing. Okay, so which basically fancy way of saying instead of having whole numbers like $1 million, $200,000 for X, expenses. Let's say your rent was $100,000 and your revenues were $1 million. Well, it would be 10% would be represented on a common sized income statement. You'd see 10% there. Okay, so now you know that your rent is 10% of your gross revenues. And then the question is, that's the relationship between the two. And then the question is that a good relationship or is that a bad one? If it's a bad one, you got to go negotiate your rent, consider moving, consider some other options. And if it's really good, you're basically having a huge win, which that one would be, by the way. So training your mind to think in percentages. And by the way, we built like profit acceleration software. The entire thing is built off of percentages for this exact reason. Okay, because again, it's part of our journey that would assist our coaches and whatnot to really start thinking in percentages. But I really believe that is a wealth hack on steroids. And it's not something that will come naturally to you. And then remember, profit, again, so you're understanding small business finance and you want to help it, and I see somebody wants to, you want to learn it for yourself, but ultimately you don't want to learn it for yourself and your good looks. What you want to do is you want to learn it for your clients, right? Well, remember this statement: profit is a theory, cash is a fact. How often have you heard from a business owner who's doing well and they say, gee, I got this profitable business, but I've got no money in my bank account. Like, where the heck is my cash? And understand that you can't go to the shopping mall or the grocery store and then go up there and have a $200 bill and pay for it with profits. How do you pay for it? With cash. Okay, so you've got to pull money out and hand it to them. They'd laugh at you if you offered their profit. So what? Let me give you an example of that. You go to your balance sheet, you see a little line item called accounts receivable, a very important one that many mess up horrifically. Well, your accounts receivable lives on the asset side of your balance sheet, which basically means that you've got accounts receivable of $100,000 that goes towards your earnings, your profit. Well, you're owed $100,000, and let's assume you're never going to collect 30,000 of it. Well, guess what? Your profits are now down 30 grand. And by the way, to add insult to injury, you will pay tax. Your client will pay tax on the $30,000 that they're never going to realize. So the solution to that is understanding bad debt. And at some stage, you've got to take, the accounts receivable. Like, accounts receivable needs to be not just a line item, but it needs to be a detailed understanding of that $100,000 needs to be broken down into, say, 10 clients that owe your client 10 grand. And then we also have to have the age of them. Some are 30 days old, 60 days old, 90, 120, and beyond. And if it's beyond 120, you really got to think about taking that and moving it into bad debt because they're not collecting the money. The guys have got out of business. They're, dodging their phone calls, what have you. It's like that. So, okay, profit is theory, cash is fact. So accounts receivable, that $100,000 would basically make it appear as though that's a significantly more profitable business than it actually is, right? And I think, again, that's a big one right there. Is like, again, they've got this profitable business. In fact, I think we talked about it last week, Road Dog, where somebody asked the question, which you might, if this is of interest, you might want to go back and listen to that one, where basically I answered the question of, I've got a client who's super profitable, but they're wondering where the heck their money was. And I went through the 5 specific areas where they, exactly where that cash is going to be. But anyways, it's just hard. Profit is theory, cash is fact. It's bloody hard. That's it. I want you to think back. You're a teenager doing final exams. Do you remember how stressful it was? Do you remember how hard it was? Do you remember the sleepless nights and, pooping your pants when you jumped on the bus or you jumped in the car or you walked into your classroom and were about to do it? Like, business, you're not getting an easy run here. You want to go and learn something like small business finance. I want to brace you for like a really, dig in, and success is just, look, I've said this before, success is the same movie 3 times a day, 7 days a week, for 10 years straight, right? Nobody wants to hear that, but that's what it really comes back to. So I like the question where it comes from. Somebody's looking to raise their game, and I noticed the way that she worded that. What did she say? Like, she wanted to raise her game for her clients, and then, that's a good, you always do more for others than you do for yourself. So it really comes back to just, what is it that you want, right? I wrote an article just after Kobe Bryant passed away for the magazine. And if you want to look at it, I've got a lot of very positive feedback, especially on the top half of it, like the beginning of it, where just basically Kobe Bryant knew exactly what he wanted, and it made life so much easier for him as a result, right? Like, at the age of 15, he knew he wanted to be the greatest basketball player of all time. He didn't want to be great. He didn't want to be elite. He didn't want to win the high school championship. He wanted to be the greatest basketball player of all time. So when you understand that that was his goal and that's what he wanted, it became really easy. Like, does he train once a day or 3 times a day? And the answer is 3 times a day, clearly. When his teammates throw, free throws and they hit 100 in a row, and then he misses on 90, does he start again? Or does he say, it's all right, I'll get him tomorrow? It becomes obvious, right? Like, does he marry his child, like his high school sweetheart, so he doesn't have to run around with his buddies, going to nightclubs and meeting girls and farting around with dating and buying big earrings and whatnot? No, he married his childhood sweetheart, and that gave him stability, and that allowed him to, concentrate on quote unquote his thing, basketball. Anyways, if you just Google my name, Karl Bryan, and then Kobe Bryant, you'll see that article pop right up. It's very, very popular. I got a lot of feedback on it. I'd encourage you. Why am I going through that? Somebody who's looking to basically, a sales and marketing gal who's talented, looking to go small business finance. Like, this is somebody who's decided that she doesn't just want to, like, her goal clearly, open her up right now, and it would be like, her goal isn't to make $100,000 a year as a business coach. You know what I mean? Her goal isn't to, really kick butt and get, 30 people to her local live event. Like, she's appears looking for mastery, personal mastery, and I encourage everybody to follow a similar suit. Deciding what you want is like, again, you talk about the ultimate hacks in this world. It makes everything so much easier. Kobe Bryant had it down. Michael Jordan had it down. Wayne Gretzky, etc. You guys could too. So Road Dog, there you go, bud. That's what there's a little bit of an outline, but it's a journey that I encourage, and it's a difficult one. So brace yourself, and they're trying to confuse the hell out of you, but go for it. There you go, bud.
So speaking of difficult journeys, so the next question, this is like completely out of left field, but it's a good question. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. The question is, a friend is thinking of getting into an MLM. Curious if you'd recommend it for someone starting out.
Oh, there we go. Okay, what would I say? Okay, we're going to assume that this is an absolute beginner, and my answer would probably be yes. What I think MLM is good for is training you on business fundamentals. Like most of, and again, depending upon the one, but let's assume it's, it's one with, a track record, been around for at least 5 years, hopefully a decade or more. So they've kind of got their ducks in a row. I think it's a really good way to learn the basics of building a real company. Like, they've got all the marketing material, they've got the motivational calls, they've got, they just had that infrastructure in place. Otherwise they wouldn't have stuck around 10 years. Let's put it that way. But what has to happen if you were going to do something like that, you got to start with a strategy, right? Like, is the goal to make $1 million in an MLM? And I'll just refer back to you guys listening. Who do you know who's been successful in MLM over the long haul? And I'm going to bet a lot of money that you don't know a single person, right? And of course, there's always that anomaly. Okay, congratulations, high five to that person. But it just doesn't work out well, right? It ends poorly. So what do I mean by strategy? It's kind of like, it's Kobe Bryant 101. It's what do you want? Answer that question before you get started. So here's an example of something that I've recommended to people thinking about MLM, or kind of at that level where they're literally full-time job and thinking about getting started, is that, let's say, for the sake of the argument, the MLM is selling soap. Okay, so to arbitrarily pick that out of the fresh air, right? So what I would do is I would get started with the MLM. I would learn how to sell soap like a mad woman or mad man, right? And then basically in 6 months, 12 months, once I felt like I got the education, what I would do is I'd get on a plane. I would go to Trinidad, Africa, a number of different, like, I would do some homework, or I would learn how to do it in my own kitchen sink to get started, but I'd create my own soap. And then I would start a business because now I understand the model to grow a business and how to sell a whole ton of soap, because that's what the MLM is doing. And then I would go as my strategy and try to do it on my own, because the last thing that I would want to do is build an MLM, quote unquote, like a downline, and then run the risk of, just all the different things. Like, just look at MLMs over the last 100 years and how well they managed to, like, it ends poorly a lot of the time, put it that way. So that's what I would do. So as a strategy, this is what I'd be working to do. And by the way, like, versus do that. And again, we're going to assume that we're working with somebody who's very, green and wet around the ears in terms of growing a business. Like, another example is, like, why not start a cleaning company? Again, if you guys have followed for any period of time, you probably heard like a cleaning business. Remember, the tattoo for your forearm is repeat business equals profit, right? Well, basically, cleaning is most people, if you give me a room of 100 people and they don't have businesses and they want to start businesses, like they're those entrepreneurs, and you put 3 businesses you'd like to start, 80% of the audience will have real estate in their top 3, and lots of them will have it as their number 1, right? It's weird. It's got that sexy delusional feel. Not a single person in the room would have a cleaning business. But if you were to ask me, what business would I start tomorrow, become a realtor, or would I start cleaning houses, with 100% certainty and without 5 seconds of hesitation, I would start with cleaning. Again, because that's a business. If you look at some of the top franchise businesses in the world, you're going to see an enormous amount. It's my background, licensing and franchising. You're going to see an enormous number of quote unquote cleaning type businesses, window washing, cleaning, etc. So that is also something. So the same person, you could take a little bit of a left turn, get them going, and then remember, what do they want? They probably don't want to run a huge cleaning business, but they could go make some money, get started. Repeat business equals profit, so they're probably going to have a pretty good experience. It's going to cost them almost nothing to get started. They got to go buy, a mop and some cleaning materials, right? A few $100 would get that done. Knock on some doors, and they're literally in business, right? And then knock on doors, and what's their offer? You always have to have. You're going to start a business, you got to have an offer. Have you ever heard me talk about this? Like, if I had $100,000 and I started a company in any industry, what I would do is I would spend $100,000 buying ideal clients, right? What I mean by that, the equivalent of that for the cleaning business is that I would knock on doors and I would be willing to clean a room or their house for free, with the understanding that my goal is to clean their house every week for the next 100 years if I did a good job, right? So I would go, and so the way I buy the client is that I spend my money and my time cleaning their house for free to build a relationship, bring some flowers and make the house look amazing, and then hopefully get them as a weekly client. When you do the math, that, or you go advertise and you spend $1,000 on ads that may or may not work. This is going to work with 100% certainty. If you clean 10 houses, you are going to get, probably 8 contracts. I almost guarantee you have 5. You'd have 2 falling off a log. And you'd basically just be in business, and that would be it. So anyway, so the same person going into a cleaning business or something, or a painting business or something really simple, might be a better strategy, because the goal isn't to probably be successful in MLM, or let me help you with that one. I would encourage them not to make, being successful in MLM with like 5% margins and whatnot. You got to work real hard to get almost nowhere. So that's not, I'd be going to do the cleaning business, the painting business, real simple, easy to start businesses. So there you go, Road Dog. That's my answer to that one, but not that bad of a question, actually, because again, and that's somebody out there looking for coaching clients, right? Like, you're not just looking for existing business owners, the chiropractor, the dentist, the butcher, baker, candlestick maker. Also, you want to go to people and friends, especially now, coronavirus season, where everybody's locked inside, and really asking some hard questions about their future. There's going to be an enormous amount of businesses started over the next 12 months, 3 years, like we've never seen before. And those are the types of businesses that are going to be getting started. So there you go, bud. That's my answer to that one, man.
So speaking of sales, I'm going to just segue this perfectly into the next question here. Because somebody wrote in and they said, look, I suck at sales and it depresses me. So I'm sorry to hear that. It shouldn't depress you. But I'm a great coach that keeps clients for you. Any advice?
So did they actually write that? It depresses them?
Yeah, they actually put it depresses me, which fair enough.
Okay, so look, there's a saying: if you can sell, you can't coach, and if you can coach, you can't sell. Right? Not far wrong. Just here it is: fear, and like you can almost hear it in the wording in the question. Like, there's fear and anxiety. Like, okay, if you've got fear and anxiety, you got 2 options: you either act or you suffer. Right? A lot of coaches who aren't doing well, they hide what I describe it as hiding behind the computer, staring at the phone, and experiencing pain. Right? Huge mistake. So there's just those positive and negative forces that are kind of drawing you, and the problem is that negative is always 10 times greater. It's entropy. Things automatically go in one direction, and without strategy, they're going towards, the greater force, which is negative. So just think of gravity, right? Instead of using, here's a strategy that might work. So instead of using, the energy of every call what I want you to do, if this literally depresses you, we're gonna need a strategy. Let's put it that way. I want you to set a plan to send 10 emails, 10 direct messages, and then 10 calls each day. Okay. Now, instead of measuring your success and your level of happiness and your level of, what you're getting out of your business, how well you're doing from each individual call, which is probably what's happening, especially if you're getting to the point where it's depressing you, right? And I laugh, I'm not laughing to tell you that because I know this is a very serious issue, by the way. But because at the end of the day, it's the goal. You want to build this thriving coaching businesses. You want to help lots of people. But you're staring at that phone and it's anxiety on steroids, right? Like I said, rather than acting, you're suffering, right? So I want you to make the plan of your day, 10 phone calls, 10 emails, and 10 direct messages per day. And then at the end of the day, success is not going to be how many clients, how many appointments. It's going to be whether or not you got your 30 contacts in. And by the way, the goal, what you're going to find is if you do that, you do the 10, you'll actually find that you'll get significantly more done because all of a sudden you get on, you get on a little bit of a roll. But I think that's going to help you with, and clearly the person that's going to write this doesn't have that sales flair, like getting somebody on the phone and then really impressing the hell out of them. Like that's going to take a little bit of time to probably massage that, that influence muscle, we'll call it. So anyway, so that's what that's what I'd say. Take the emphasis away. Remember that, like Road Dog, you end every single podcast we do with those 3 magic words: progress equals happiness. So instead of taking the individual call and using that as progress, I want you to have your cheat sheet, or not so much your cheat sheet, but your strategy, your piece of paper in front of you, your note, the notes on your iPhone in front of your iPad that just has that down, and you just start ticking them off and use that as your success gauge. I think that will help. But I'd also say, look, just get out of your head. This is somebody who's in their head. In fact, Tony Robbins, I was watching, what's it called? I'm Not Your Guru. I was watching that on the weekend. And I can't remember quite what it was, but the way to not get very far is to basically stay in your head, right? If even this question, like this individual, I almost guarantee, again, this is the challenge, but you really gotta, you gotta stay out of your head. And how do you do that? Okay, that sounds good. It's actually the question the other gal answered, right? Where she was like, so that I could help my clients. You always do more for others than you do for yourself. Okay. So if I'm hiding behind my computer and I'm staring at the phone, I'm in my head and the person that I'm thinking about is me. Like depression is the ultimate, selfish act. Okay. Because if you're depressed, you're 100% focused on you. It's impossible to be depressed, to be focusing on somebody else. Right. So that's part of the hack. So I want you to think of, why are you going to pick up the phone? Why are you going to send these messages? What result are you ultimately looking for? And I always come back to, marriages break up from lack of money 100 times more than they do lack of love. The end, right? And then that's the separation, and then it's the divorce, and then it's the depression, and then it's the loss of, it's taking the family's net worth and, chopping it in half, and then we know what happens from there. And then, by the way, stepmommy and stepdaddy step in. It's just brutal. And by the way, you're talking to the poster boy of all that. Right? I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and I experienced it all. Right? And then my dad, to this day, and my beautiful mom sits right on my desk right now as I see her. I'll give her, done this before, give her a little kiss in her pink urn. But my dad's number one regret to this day is leaving my mom. Right. And again, it was all, business and money related and blah, 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 without going into that. So what am I getting at? When literally it's depressing you, you're fixated, you're in your head and you're fixated on you. The reason I want you to pick up the phone, the reason I want you to send the messages, the reason I want you to send the emails, the reason I want you to be influential, and convincing while they're on the phone is for that reason. It's the separation. It's the divorces. It's the stepmom, stepdad, it's the kids, and then they hit the weed, and then they hit the cigarettes first, and then they hit the weed, and then in this day and age, Lord knows where it goes from there with all the the craziness available to our kids. It's bloody heartbreaking, quite frankly. So I want you to be thinking of that. Think of others as opposed to yourself, and you're well and truly. And Tony Robbins, if you watch I'm not your guru. See, he says it right in there, but something to the effect of just if you're not getting anywhere, you're just in your head. That's the challenge. So that's what I'd say to that one, man. But my heart goes out to somebody who's literally getting depressed about it. But I just encourage you to start focusing on others as opposed to yourself, and I think you'll get significantly further. There you go.
So you mentioned entropy. Do you want to kind of break that down for us, just in case for those that don't know what it is?
Entropy. I might need to look myself. No, just in case. So entropy is like gravity, where something automatically falls in a certain direction. Well, entropy is that, like, think of your health. Your health, as you get older, your health is not getting better, especially if you don't look after it. It's naturally going to go in the wrong direction. Okay. So if you put together a program tomorrow, and let's call it a sales and marketing 101 or accounting 101 or small business finance 101 or how to start a cleaning business 101. Doesn't matter. You put together a program, over time, it will, if without the updates, the upgrades, and constant, massaging and upgrading of it, it will naturally go in the wrong direction. Maybe a really good example of that would be like Chet Holmes, who's a guy who I loved back in the day. I followed him like crazy, wrote a great book. As I look at my bookshelf, I can probably find it here. Here, Chet Holmes, The Ultimate Sales Machine. I'm looking at it. It's like literally right at the top of my bookshelf, and there's a reason why, because I've referred to it many times. But poor bugger, he passed away. He was partners with Tony Robbins. If you know Business Coaching Mastery, it was really Chet Holmes started Business Coaching Mastery, and Tony Robbins and him went and did what they did, and it still stands today. Chet Holmes has some of the best stuff ever. The problem is the poor bugger, like I said, he passed away. I'm not sure how long. It's probably close to a decade now. Too long, by the way. But great, unbelievably talented guy. But his material, it's just going in the wrong direction, right? Like clearly, like Facebook hardly even existed, right? LinkedIn hardly existed, etc. So the program over time, because it hasn't been updated and upgraded, which he absolutely would have done, it's just naturally gone in the wrong direction. So the same thing will happen for you, your programs, your health, your relationships. Everything has, it's just negative forces are 10 times stronger than positive. So you've got to stop it. Again, think of gravity. So that's what entropy is, and probably a really good lesson for everybody. And, with your clients, like I said, your customer relationships, your products, your services, if you're a gardener, the rake, when you buy it, and then 3 years later, what does it look like? Well, that's entropy right there. So that's the answer to that, bud. Good question, man. Appreciate that.
All right. Discounting. Okay, so let's go into a bit of a different direction here. Obviously, for those of you following Karl's email series, there's a lot of good stuff in there. And somebody responded to that and said, "I saw your email series on discounts. What's the best discounting strategy?"
The best. Don't do it. How's that sound?
Right.
Okay. Well, that's not necessarily. So first of all, you gain, with fear of repeating myself here today, but you better do this with a strategy, right? So I'd encourage you to not do it unless you have to do it. And what would you do instead? Like add value as opposed to find a way to discount. People get addicted to discounts. They do not get addicted to free. Again, that can be when you think second, third, fourth order consequences. That can be a little bit of the harm you do. Like let's say you have the average business and you offer a 10% discount. You have to sell 33% more to break even. Okay, so think of the logic behind that. What's the hardest thing to do in a business? Generate a lead and make a sale. So by offering the 10% discount to the person standing in front of you, you've now got to find 33% more of him or her in order to break even. Right. So again, you should really be thinking about how you can add value, supersize it. Do you want me to make that into a meal in McDonald's world? But the best, well, let me tell you this. So in fact, I wrote this straight in the emails, by the way, but let's say that you walk into, let's call it a retail shop, and they've got 50% off, half price. Like, there's a bunch of different ways to denominate that. Let's just go 50% off. Well, if you change that to buy one and get one free, it'll immediately get a boost in 20% return, potentially as high as 50%. Okay, so in other words, buy one and get one free will outperform half price, 50% off, etc., by a significant margin. In fact, I remember I was in Mexico a while ago, and what was it? I walked in, and I can't remember the brand of the watch, but I love watches. I got lots of watches, and I love them. I walked in there, and there's a sign, and it said, buy 2 watches and get 5. Right? I was like, I remember the reaction that I had. I literally went and found my wife. I was kind of just scooting around. I found my wife, and I'm like, get in here, check this out. And lo and behold, guess what I did? I walked around the first thing is I looked around the store to make sure that I could find 5 that I liked. Otherwise, what a waste of time, right? I'm not totally stupid. But I walked through, and there was probably 10 that I would have liked, right? Now, my wife likes, kind of more classy type, Hugo Boss black watch. And then I like something a little more gaudy. So between the two of us, right, like I picked 5, and, 2 were like the Hugo Boss one, and then the other 3 were a little flashier. But bottom line is I walked out of there, and these weren't overly cheap, by the way, right? So the 2 still came to a decent number. But I tell you, I ran around and I grabbed the 5. So that would just be an example of it. But again, you need to have a strategy before you start. If you just do it sporadically, which is the way things tend to go, like moving old stock would be an example of why you would do a discount, because next year people are going to come in. You got to make room. Like, you've only got so much retail space. You got to move this stuff out in order to get next year's in, would be an example, right? You should always have a limited time offer. If they're going to do a discount, if it's not coming with a limited time offer, you'd be in a little bit of, that would be a mistake. Remember, people get addicted to discounts. They don't get addicted to free. And, and as far as I joke, like, you shouldn't do it. I mean, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Tiffany, they all do discount at some stage. It's rare, which is important. And again, it's got a strategy behind it. There's a reason why they're doing it, and it has a limited time offer always. So don't think you just, it's a flat out no, but do understand it needs to be done with strategy, or even like as a loss leader. Like, here's a great example. If you know the story of Gary Vaynerchuk, he built his parents' liquor store from $3 to $60 million. How do they do it? A huge part of it is he would advertise the most popular alcohol. It's a liquor store, right? So he would advertise the most popular liquor. Budweiser, Jim Beam, Coors Light, right? Like, these are the types of things that he would advertise. He would advertise them literally at a loss. Okay, so you would come in and buy Coors Light, buy Budweiser, buy Jim Beam. He would literally lose money, right? So you think, well, what the heck? This is a horrific strategy. What's the guy's problem, right? Well, here's what he would do: is people would come in to buy the Budweiser, to buy the Coors Light, and once in a while they'd grab it, walk to the till. He couldn't influence them. They left, and he lost a few bucks, right? But what he would do is storytelling, and I want to capitalize that. I want you to bold it, italicize it. Storytelling is magic. Like, to a magician, storytelling is like the equivalent of a false wall, right? Like, you understand magic, right? Like, like her legs disappeared. Like, what the hell's going on? Where's her legs, right? Well, there's a false wall there, right? Two-way mirrors, that sort of thing. Like, storytelling's the equivalent of that. So Gary Vaynerchuk, you'd walk into his liquor store and basically, you'd come in, and then he would go into storytelling mode. In other words, he would get you, instead of buying Bud, or maybe you're going to buy Bud and he can't pull you off it because you've been drinking it for 20 years, but he would get you over to the craft wine, the craft beers, and the stuff that he had significantly higher margins on, which he's very famous for selling wine, right? So he'd get you over to the wine where he was making huge margins. He would tell you a story, about the owners, about the death in the family and why they ended up, creating the wine, or the fact that this one's not going to give you a hangover, and the reason it's not going to give you a hangover is because of this, and what you didn't realize about Bud and you didn't realize about the other wines is that they do X, Y, Z, and then this is the reason why this one's going to be amazing, right? So, but basically what he would do is get you into the store, go into storytelling mode. So it's the X factor here, though, is that he had salespeople working the floor, and he was the number one salesperson, of course, working the floor of a liquor store. And another thing, if you go into the story, he had like a top 10, right? So you'd go in, and then he had like the top 10 wines, the top 10 beers, and I'll let you guess which ones made the list, right? Well, and, the good ones, but also the ones that he had higher margin. And he was moving again, and he was buying in bulk. So he was getting, no doubt Gary V's a pretty good negotiator. So again, he's negotiating terms and crushing it with the stuff that he's selling. So anyways, that's the answer to that one, man, is that Yeah, discounting, just make sure you do it with a strategy. And again, something like storytelling would be similar to like what I said earlier with percentages, right? Like it's a hack on steroids. I think sometimes you can learn these little tweaks, little 2% variances in what everybody else is doing to what you're doing, and it's game over. So basically, yeah, that's what I do. Just make sure you do it with a strategy. People get addicted to it, so be careful. Have a limited time offer always, and if they got to do it, they got to do it. But don't start there, which is they'll without your influence and assistance, they'll start there, right? And that's a horrific idea. So there you go, buddy. That's it, man.
Okay, so I'm going to end off with this question, because obviously with our sheer brilliance and comedic value and charming personalities, I think other people are starting to think that maybe they should start a podcast. It's because the question that we got was, do you recommend I start a podcast? What are your thoughts on that?
Do I think, and by the way, my charming personality, much more than yours, Road Dog. Come on, we all know that, right? You're the big muscly version. No, just kidding. I take that back. All right, let's answer the question. Do you recommend I start a podcast? Look, yes, like the end. But here's what, like, you're going to get, like, if I go to my inbox right now, I've got an invitation to be a guest on a podcast, right? Here's where I have got frustrated, and I'm not getting frustrated on behalf of myself. I'm getting frustrated on behalf of the people who are listening. So I'll go do the podcast, and it's like some professionally done thing, like as though we're going to Hollywood, and like they've got some moderator there, and then they come in, and he's got these automatic templated questions, and then they get in, then there's a commercial break, and we got to sit there and toot around while they're doing a commercial break, and then we get back into it, and quite frankly, all I find, if you guys really understand, like, getting interviewed and sales, like you get into a flow and you just want to go, right? So my recommendation, and this is just my recommendation, is that you really hone your craft, right? Like really understand your stuff, but do understand that what you're going to learn, like since we've done this podcast, Road Dog, I can't begin to tell you how much I have learned, right? Like unbelievable. So do feel comfortable that it will be a journey. It'd be great for your clients that listen, but it'll be an unbelievable journey for you too. So yes, you should start a podcast, but the X factor here, and what I really want to influence everybody is, my opinion, is that when you do it, you should get in there. You should provide as much value as possible. Until you're Tim Ferriss, don't pretend that you're Tim Ferriss. So what I mean by that, like having a commercial break, right? Like we've never had a commercial break, Road Dog. We've never promoted anything. Like I literally had you guys follow me, my emails. I don't promote anyone or anything. The end. I just don't. And it's just a blanket. It's not because the reason is just the obvious one, that you promote you, I promote me, and I'm good, right? Like if your stuff's so amazing, that's awesome. Let me have a look at it, but I'm not promoting it to my folks, because if it's that good, they'll find it anyways, right? So, so with the podcast, we just get on here, we have a little bit of fun, you poke fun at me, we do our thing, and then we rock and roll, we hang up, and we're done. So that's what I want to encourage you, and especially like you bring on a guest, and let's assume the guest that you're bringing on really knows their stuff. Like, let's say you're going to bring on a chiropractor, and this chiropractor can really change the game for me, for my back health. Well, again, just asking all the templated blah, blah, tell me your story, this, that, and the other. Like, say to the guy, like, and in some cases people want to do this, in some cases they don't, but just say, are there 5 questions that you want me to ask you? Right? Well, it would make sense for you to ask that, get those 5 questions, and then you know that the answers you're going to be getting are going to be the best answers, because your job is to get as much value as you possibly can to the people listening. And in fact, I would go significantly deeper and further than that and say you have an obligation. Like if you take an hour of my time and you don't really teach me anything, I just find that is an absolute, it's a travesty. And if you listen to Michael Jordan, like a lot of the times what he will say, like if you watch the, what's the Last Dance and whatnot, you hear him say this, where basically the Michael Jordan, the attitude that he took, because you're like, how did he show up every game? Like, how did he play at that level almost always? Sick, rain, shine, whatever, Michael Jordan, quote unquote, showed up. And it's that one of the driving principles was that there's somebody in that audience that has never seen me before and will never see me again, and this will be their chance to see Michael Jordan. And he put on a show for those individuals, not the guys in the front rows and not the Hollywood stars, but the little kid, the dad and his son going to the first game, the only basketball game that they're going to go to, and he wanted to put on a show, right? So I would encourage you to think, and Road Dog, you and I, we kind of joke around, but we have spent an enormous amount of time behind the scenes, strategizing. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? What kind of questions do we want? What kind of questions don't we want? What are we going to teach these guys? We take it very seriously, right? And by the way, I think genuinely our results, and you don't listen to what I say, go check it out. But the results are impressive. I never spent 5 cents marketing this thing, never spent 5 cents on advertising of this podcast. It's all just been viral. And that's not to say that we won't, by the way. We very well may do in the not too distant future. But that being said, it's just the game plan is to provide as much value as humanly possible to the people listening. And I'm not in any way trying to pat Road Dog and myself on the back. What I'm trying to do is give you our strategy and our bigger picture, and then hopefully you're going to grab it. Because again, the question, should you do a podcast? Absolutely. But make sure, I would just encourage you versus go hire a professional service and all that stuff. Really get to know your stuff, press play, start talking, except that if I went back, actually, guys, again, you think of listening to this podcast, I have not listened. I literally listened to about 30 seconds one time. If I went back, I'm so critical of myself. I just know what would happen. It would not be a good thing, right? I listening to it, we go through and show notes and that sort of stuff, but listening, I just don't do it. So I just want, we just get on here, we start talking. What am I saying? If I went back and listened to the first few, I bet I'd be shaking my head going, oh my gosh, if I would have done that at the beginning, maybe we wouldn't have continued, right? It's the same with my emails. There's no doubt I've got significantly better at it over time. When I go back and reread one from way, way back when, I'm just oh my lordy, right? It didn't make any sense. I jumped around. I this, that, the other. It didn't matter. I just continued to do it, and got better. Once again, not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm trying to explain to you my journey, how I got, we got this podcast up and running and going well. You press play, you bring value, you respect the audience at the absolute highest level, bring them value. And my opinion of that is not to hire some professional service that are going to give you these templated questions and encourage templated questions, have commercials in the middle of your, in the middle of your podcast when, again, right now, you're just trying to get people to listen, to build a following and provide them value. I think that's a mistake. And that's, by the way, I could open somebody up and then they would disagree vehemently with what I just said. So you know what? That's my take. That's my opinion. You guys do what you're going to start your podcast, follow the journey that you think makes the most sense. But that's what I'd say. So Road Dog, what do you think, bud? Would you agree with that?
I like it. It's all about freestyling, my friend. Freestyling and just seeing where she goes, right?
And we do that, Road Dog. Anybody who listens, nobody can find us guilty of anything other than freestyling. So
some weeks more than others, but anyways, if it's one thing I know about you is you don't like scripted questions too much because there aren't enough rabbit holes included in those. But anyways, on that note, can you close us out with giving our listeners your one thing that they can do today from today's podcast?
One thing. You know what? I sent a text message to a buddy, in fact, a mutual buddy of ours, Johnny Utah, about 10 minutes before this, and he's thinking about, so he's a fellow hockey guy, and he's thinking there's somebody, a friend of ours has, and you know him as well, Road Dog, but he's got this hockey app, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that, and it's going to go to the moon. He's got this ex-NHL players doing it, and Utah, he's in the process of building a successful company, and quite frankly, doing really, really well. And I just said to him, I said, Utah, come over here. I go, growth is yes, success is no with capitals. And I said, until you've got your business cranking, don't do it. Or the way I described it is you got to concentrate on your thing, and thing capitalized, because that's what you got to concentrate on here. Don't get pulled in other directions. Like Michael Jordan, if you go do the homework on Michael Jordan, you'll see that one stage, he was just completely fixated on basketball. He encouraged all kids, if you want to be elite at basketball, fall in love with the game. Parents would ask him, fall in love with the game. That's how you get there. But there was a time where he fell away from that, and he was doing commercials and Gatorade and everything. I remember actually, Road Dog, one of my clients is Kevin Daly, who he was the captain of the Harlem Globetrotters for 10 years, and he was actually young Michael Jordan in the famous Jordan Gatorade commercial where it was young Jordan versus old Jordan, by the way. It's kind of cool. But bottom line, he was getting away from, quote unquote, his thing, right? And it was really starting to distract him. He became a global icon on steroids, which if he wouldn't have done all those commercials and whatnot and be like Mike, it wouldn't have been quite as bad as it was, or bad or good, or however you want to word that. But the bottom line is he then went, no more distractions. That's it. He got back to his thing, and his thing was basketball and being the absolute best, and he crushed it. So long-winded way of saying my parting words are, A, what is your thing? And again, maybe, Google Karl Bryan, Kobe Bryant. You'll see an article that I wrote on how to, what do you want? That's basically going to become your thing. And focus on your thing. There you go, Road Dog. That's my parting words, bud.
Beauty. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in to another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill, my boy King Karl. And if you're not getting Karl's daily emails, or you want more information on how to build your coaching company, visit focused.com, and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share with an existing coach or someone that you think would make a great coach, okay, like the highly motivated sales type person. And of course, we'd appreciate it if you rate this episode, as we know that iTunes and Spotify give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. And again, that's it for this week and another week. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.